Reactions continue to trail the September 6 judgment of the Presidential Election Tribunal, and especially the role of INEC. Former President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Agbakoba, insists that INEC needs to be unbundled for it to perform better. But first, I started by asking his views on the outcome of the Presidential Tribunal judgment and the lessons from the whole electoral process.
Well, as you know, I'm a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, and part of the ethos in the bar is not to discuss cases on television. And let me also take this opportunity to now beg TV stations to stop converting their studios to courtrooms. It's infra-dig. So having said that, no, I cannot comment on the structure of the case, the presentation of the case, the judgments delivered. I know there was a lot of hard work on all sides, so I applaud all of the actors. But I think what comes out as a central issue, and on all sides, whether it's the petitioner or the respondent, or even from the judge's comments, is the total failure of the institution of INEC. I repeat my call that the gale of sacks that are now on in Nigeria should be visited upon INEC. There's no reason why the professor, who is the head of INEC, should be there. He's completely failed. We can't trust him on the basis of his reputation that he wants to see a very well conducted election. He said they have noticed that the big problem is when the votes are being transmitted manually for collation. So, according to INEC and my friend Festus Okoye, the BVAS and IREV will eliminate all of that. So it is surprising that the same INEC that gave us the impression that this is mandatory now take advantage of the fact that the Constitution and the Electoral Act gives them a discretion. So in the conduct of the elections, they've not switched. They told parties they shall be on one leg. Now they've switched. Let's see what the Supreme Court makes of it. But what that actually implies is we need to bring down the structure of INEC. We need to review exactly what is it they're supposed to do. And I've always said that INEC is too huge. They do far too many things. In my view, they should just be a referee and nothing more. So if the lesson of all this is that the National Assembly will engage in a truly transformative legal framework for elections, then that would be the benefit. But for now, INEC gets no marks at all from me. The last National Assembly, the 9th National Assembly, misdirected us. They misled us to think that IREV and the BVAX had the legal framework it had, but now we see that it doesn't. So what would happen to the forthcoming elections in Ondo, Bayelsa, and elsewhere? So what rules will INEC use? We don't know. They can change. If they've used Rule A and they go to the tribunal and find that they need to now say, oh, no, we didn't use Rule A, we'll use Rule B. What's the position? So we need to be very clear. What's the legal framework for conducting elections? This is the worst election in Nigeria's history because INEC just kept changing the rules.
But how do you propose that we unbundle INEC? Because in some of the election petition cases, we've seen that INEC was even objecting to some of the documents that came from its custody. And people have said that this practice of making INEC a respondent in the election petition such that they will now come to court to defend whatever it is they have done, it's causing a lot of issues.
No, exactly. In the Ways panel, again, we looked at this and we said INEC has no business being an active respondent. Whether it's a notified party or whatever title you gave it to come to court, but INEC's business is just to present the results and go away. It's not for them to say, here are the results, and then to defend it. Role is just to tell us what you presented. We see it and we review it against the law. So if you did the elections in Onitsha, here are the results, then that's it. It is for the lawyers and the judges to make of those results what they want to make of it for the courts to decide. So INEC's rule needs to be very minimal, very, very minimal.
This issue about beavers and IREV that you've alluded to, the National Assembly making us believe that there's a legal framework for it, whereas there was none. How do we address it going forward?
Well, so what can we do except to tighten it? Now that we know we've been taken for a ride, I also felt I was taken for a ride. We all need to be conscious. We all need to be more engaged in what the National Assembly is doing. We shouldn't just take it for granted that what they say is true. Because what they told us clearly was that they were setting up a legal framework for electronic voting. Now, that is not true. So I think all Nigerians, particularly those NGOs that work in, the electoral reform process, should take, some pains to know what it is that is being, worked on at the legislative level.
Away from election petitions, let's talk about the rule of law. Every government has come into power listing the rule of law as one of its major themes, but we don't seem to be getting it right. What do you think should be the rule of law agenda of this administration?
Well, rule of law is a notion, it's a concept that cannot be efficacious unless it is applied by people who understand what it means. So I go to Professor Nwabeze's doctrine of limited government. So when government understands that it is limited, so the president knows that I can't do this, and therefore I won't because there's no law, then that's the rule of law. But if the president knows that I can't do this, but I will do it and get away with it anyway, then there's no rule of law. And I think all through the administration of President Buhari, in respect in particular of foreign monies that were borrowing, they would borrow and come and ask for permission from the National Assembly. So at the end of the day, it's the leaders, it's the political people who interpret the rule of law to suit themselves. For instance, President Buhari said that the rule of law is subservient to national security. So that's his own interpretation. But I think there's only one interpretation. The rule of law stands above all of us and all of us below it. That's what the rule of law is. Without rule of law, you can't grow. You can't, because there's no rule of law. Rule of law means that you cannot change the law. You cannot break it and then say, I didn't know. It stands. It keeps you, like Mwabeze, it keeps you in check. That's what it does. And it creates equality. Everybody's equal. You don't have one man here, one man here. That's the rule of law. That's going to be a very difficult concept if your thinking is that, does it apply in Nigeria? And I can tell you it will take a long time.
But how can we get there?
Development. No poverty. Strong opposition. Strong opposition parties. Multi-partism. So strong civil society. Strong media. What pushed Boris Johnson to resign? Would not push anybody here to resign, because they were feeling stressed and tired, and he had a cup of coffee or tea or Coke. No. Rule of law is a big notion. No? I once gave a presentation to the ministerial retreat, and I told them, rule of law? We don't know what it means. Rule of law means that if you're a minister and you come to the traffic lights, you stop. That's what it means. It means that you apply what the law says. It means that you obey what the judges say. So if the judges make a decision against government, immediately government applies it.
Apart from the rule of law, which you've talked about, what do you think should be the justice sector agenda of the administration?
I think there's going to be an exciting opportunity for the new Attorney General to unfold his agenda. Meet the relevant stakeholders in the justice sector and ask them what the concerns are. For me personally, I have a couple of major concerns. First of all, I'd like for the Attorney General to understand that his role is not just a law and order public officer, it's also a law and development. So he has to have a 360 degrees, view of his job. So on the criminal justice side, I think we need to see the creation of a national prosecution agency, and not just an administrative, the office of the DPP. We need to see also the creation of office of federal prosecutors. Everything is bunched around Abuja. It needs to diversify so that criminal justice can move. Federal prosecutors, maybe zonal levels. We need to see district attorneys so that cases don't just end up on the table of the AGF. I wonder how an AGF can cope supervising the entire Nigeria. We need institutions for that. We need to also have a review of speed of justice. The pace of justice is too slow. Then this confusion between federal causes and state causes. I don't want to see a case crawling from Apapa on land to Supreme Court. So we need to be clear about that distinction between state causes and federal causes. And I urge those who are now there to really see what they can do about it.
Apart from the slow speed of justice, another thing that is confronting the integrity is the belief that our judges are corrupt. Do you believe that our judges are corrupt?
Well, I don't have the evidence. I hear that a lot. I don't have the evidence. But is it necessary to ask that question and answer it? I don't think so. It is necessary to ask the question, do we have a structure of a judiciary that enables the judge to do his work? Because if you don't have that, then you will have side effects, and corruption might be one of them. Laziness may be another one. Incompetence of judges may be another one. So what I think is best to do is to review the entire justice framework and to ask a question. How old exactly is this justice framework? Many people don't know. It's probably 1875, the 1875 Administration of Justice Act that created the high court system in the UK and all that. I think that's where we draw our current, with some modification, but our current judicial process from. That's too old. It's completely outdated. So I think that the philosophical question here is to say, when the cause ceases to have effect, so when the cause of slow justice ceases to have effect, then the effect ceases. So all this issue of corruption, late sitting, overcrowded dockets and all that, it will go. If you have a sound system. In England, the Supreme Court sits in a small room with square tables. No one is wearing any of those wigs. I think the wigs and gowns and all the paraphernalia of the old justice system ought to be thrown out of the window. Because it's a conversation. They brought justice down to the level of everybody. So the president of the Supreme Court sits, and around the table sit the lawyers, and they converse. But if we are still sitting here on thrones, where the Supreme Court is up there, and the Court of Appeal justices are also up there, and you are down here. So I would say a complete revamp of the system is what is required to cleanse the mess. So it's not necessary to say, oh, judges are corrupt. I remember one judge who, made an appeal in respect of his mom who had kidney issues and was dying. And you call that corruption? I don't think so. The man has no money. So if a judge is very badly paid, in England, I think the average judge might be paid about £450,000 a year. He has no business to look for, call a friend here. Can you give me something? Because he's got enough. But if our judges here are earning an average, but I don't even know. I can't really recall what they earn. 9 million, 10, 12 million a year. Then there's a foundation laid for all kinds of things to happen, which you have mentioned.